Armed with powerful knuckles and even more powerful abilities, the monk flies into action. The monk is a powerful physical attacker that specializes in using their fists to deal the most damage they possibly can, through setting up strong attacks that can pierce through an enemy's default, to using up almost all of their health to cause a massive explosion on impact. The monk is a powerhouse in almost any situation. Jumping right into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about Monk's specialty, Knuckle Lore. This specialty gives Monk S-rank affinity with Knuckle-type weapons. This affinity even allows monks to perform at the highest level possible even without any weapons equipped. With Monk's already high attack stat, Knuckle Lore gives the monk easy access to high damage output throughout the entire game, even to the point that, by the later points in the game, an unarmed monk's physical damage surpasses every other means of dishing out physical damage. The base stats of the monk work so well with this specialty, and it certainly pulls its weight. Now that the specialty is done, next up is the monk's abilities. First up at job level 1 is Strong Strike. Strong Strike is an interesting attack, as its strength is doubled that of a regular attack, at the cost of having only a 50% chance of actually connecting. Taking advantage of the Brave system allows the monk to increase the chance of them actually landing this attack just based on probability, but it is difficult to gauge if the gamble is even worth taking. This ability can certainly be effective in the early stages of the game, but when Monk gains access to other combat abilities, the appeal of Strong Strike starts to lose its luster. The probability of landing the attack can be boosted by other skills such as Freelancer's Prayer, but it still doesn't make the attack any less RNG based. At job level 2, Monk learns Invigorate. Using Invigorate has the chance of raising the monk's physical attack power by 25% for 2 turns, with the drawback of having a 25% chance of the ability backfiring, dealing damage to the monk equal to 20% of their maximum HP. That's a lot of percentages, but here we go. I'm gonna be honest here, I don't think this ability is very good. The physical attack bonus looks appealing at first glance, but it is also at the risk of dealing a considerable amount of damage to yourself each time you activate it. I don't think the reward is worth the risk here, but if for some reason you want to take that risk to potentially close out a fight faster, be my guest. Invigorate's damage increase can also be raised up to a max 50% damage increase, but that still means potentially damaging yourself in order to get it. Next up at job level 3, Monk learns Inner Alchemy. This ability is quite straightforward, curing the user of Poison, Blind, Silence, Dread, and Confuse. This ability really has no downsides, and is an easy way for monks to alleviate some pressure off of any support jobs in the party, especially since this ability can remove all of these status debuffs all at once. Now, the next ability that Monk learns is a bit different than any other style of ability level ups we've seen up to this point. At 3 different points in Monk's leveling journey, you will obtain variations of a similar ability. So I'll just go ahead and tackle them all right now. So, at job level 4, Monk learns HP 10% up. This support ability pairs quite nicely with Monk's already large HP pool, further increasing the amount of punishment that they can take. But this ability also works wonders on other jobs that might find their HP stat lacking and need that extra push. HP 20% up is learned at job level 10, and acts very similar to its predecessor, just increasing your HP more at the cost of 1 more support point. Similar to HP 10% up, this ability complements both the monk and any other job in the game that might desire more HP, though the 2 points it require could very easily become a deterrent if that cost is too high for certain team compositions. Finally, HP 30% up is learned at job level 12, and this one costs 3 whole support points. Very useful if you are in dire need of a health upgrade, but otherwise you could probably skip this one. It just takes up too much room, and you'll rarely ever need this much of an HP boost. One more thing to note about the set of support abilities is that you can stack their effects together. This isn't particularly useful, but it is an option if you want to do so. After hitting job level 5, Monk learns Knuckle Lore. Want to give any other job the knuckle proficiencies of a monk? Here's your means to do so. Although, since I already went over what Knuckle Lore does in the specialty segment of this video, I instead want to take this time to go a little more into detail on how the lore support abilities actually work. When equipping a lore ability, it grants the user S-rank affinity with that chosen piece of gear, increasing the possible damage multiplier given by weapon affinities to its maximum. Note that this increase only modifies physical stats, so you will see no increase in magic damage if you were to, for example, give a character Rod Lore even if the rods themselves increase your magic attack stat. It will only affect the physical damage the rods themselves can deal. I can't tell you how long it took me to realize this on my first playthrough. Another thing to note about lore support abilities is that the size of the stat increase can also differ, based on what other support abilities you might have equipped on your character. Here's an easy way of understanding this. Take a sword. Let's say it has 50 physical attack, and I have C rank affinity with it. With just my C rank affinity, the weapon's power is 70, but if I equip sword lore, that stat is boosted to 100. However, let's say I had the support ability two-handed equipped. My base power would be 140, but the lore would increase the sword's physical stat up to 200. The difference in damage increase is pretty clear here, and this is something to keep in mind when using lore abilities. With that long tangent out of the way, is Knuckle Lore worth putting on your characters? Honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, Knuckles are incredibly useful for dealing powerful attacks and fit well with any other physical job. But on the other hand, most jobs that specialize in dealing high amounts of physical damage usually already have a weapon slot with S rank affinity, so deciding to plop Knuckle Lore onto that job might just be wasting a support slot. With that long tangent out of the way, let's move on to something a bit simpler. At job level 6, Monk learns Hidden Dragon. Hidden Dragon is a combat ability that activates at the end of a turn, meaning every ally and enemy have made their moves, and it deals a powerful attack. This attack is 25% stronger than a Monk's regular attack. This ability is interesting, since Monk is usually one of the first jobs to act when combat begins, so having a move that can only activate at the end of turn is something a little out of the ordinary. Despite this skill's unique requirement, there are a number of scenarios where you might want to use Hidden Dragon. Just a quick example of this could be braving 4 hidden dragons, aiming to take advantage of incoming attack buffs on the same turn. Because the monk usually acts first in combat, being able to delay your attacks opens up avenues for strategies such as this. Next up, at job level 7, Monk learns Qigong Wave. This ability is a powerful attack with a 1.25 damage multiplier that can pierce through an enemy's default status. Because of this, Qigong Wave is an absolute powerhouse when trying to keep pressure on your opponents, since there is no default defense increase that they can fall back on to lessen the powerful blows of the monk. This combat ability is also a good reason to level up Monk as a sub-job, as any physical attack-based job can fully take advantage of the power this ability brings. The only downside I can really see with this attack is that the later combat skills the monk obtains fully outclass that of the Qigong Wave, but we'll get to those soon. After getting job level 8, Monk learns Blind Immunity. Similar to Freelancer's Poison Immunity, Blind Immunity allows the monk to remove and to guard against any form of blindness in combat, but can still be blinded outside of combat. This ability is slightly more useful than Poison Immunity in my opinion, and can keep your physical attackers from being impaired at any point in an encounter. At job level 9, Monk learns Physical Attack 10% Up. Really useful support ability for not just Monk, but any physical damage focused job in the game. I highly recommend you look into leveling Monk for this support ability if not anything else. Nothing much else can be said, so let's move on. Once you hit job level 11, Monk learns Pressure Point. At the cost of 1 BP to use, the Monk unleashes an attack with a 2x multiplier that ignores enemies' physical defense. Pressure Point is where the damage output of the Monk skyrockets, allowing the Monk to melt HP bars like a hot knife through butter. The BP cost, however, means that this ability is a little difficult to spam without leaving yourself in the negative, so pairing this ability with a Freelancer's Mimic isn't a bad idea, as Mimic can bypass that BP cost after the initial hit. Like Monk's other powerful physical abilities, Pressure Point works well with any other physical-focused job, so keep that in mind when creating teams. Now at job level 13, Monk learns Phoenix Flight. When using Phoenix Flight, the Monk drops their HP to 1 and uses the HP lost as damage dealt to your opponent. This move on its own isn't really all that useful for anything other than closing out fights, where you know you can rest up after. The real power of Phoenix Flight is revealed when paired with other jobs and their abilities, like one that might, I don't know, deal more damage the less health you have remaining? Just kinda throwing that out there. This ability throws survival out of the window and embraces the now or never mentality very well. And finally, at job level 14, Monk learns Natural Talent. When applying Natural Talent and unequipping everything on the Monk, their attack power is doubled completely. With this support ability, the Monk becomes the definition of a glass cannon, being able to dish out incredible damage, but being unable to take hits themselves very well. High risk, high reward, so plan accordingly. Okay, so let's talk about Monk as a main job. In general, the Monk has a very basic game plan. Hit hard and fast. The weapon affinities of the Monk lock it into a high physical damage output, medium damage intake job that really doesn't have much wiggle room for anything else. Because of this, it isn't too hard to find a suitable sub-job for Monk, as most physical damage jobs will fit with it really well. However, if you are aiming to get creative with Monk outside of pure damage, having it as a main job isn't going to be your best option. Its abilities Pressure Point and Phoenix Flight are best used with Monk as your main job, thanks to their already high physical attack and max HP stat. As stated before, almost any physical damage jobs work well with this, so it really comes down to personal preference. If you are using Monk in a sub-job role, it will be more for utility than anything else, having tools such as Qigong Wave to pierce default and Inner Alchemy to remove status ailments. Depending on what exactly you desire in the Monk's moveset, could completely change the main job recommendations. But in general, suggestions I could make for a main job would be other high physical focused jobs, shocker, I know, since Monk will complement it pretty well, or jobs with middle of the road stat spreads that need an extra kick to really dish out good damage. Despite the Monk's very simple game plan of hit hard and fast, Monk continues to be a valuable asset to any team throughout the game's duration. I've known many people that obtain Monk during the prologue and stick with it till the end. Heck, even one of my playthroughs, I did that. While there are some abilities that it has that you might use once and then never again, some of the later skills learned can create strategies that can decimate any boss in the game. This job is incredibly good, and I'd recommend that any new player look into at least leveling this job on one character, and I can assure you it will meet your expectations. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, time to talk about the fashion of the Monk. So let's begin with Tiz. I'll be honest, not a great start in my opinion. The outfit just doesn't really do it for me. I'm not a big fan of the white vest or the straps around the arms. If I could say one positive thing, it is that I like the little earrings that Tiz gets with this design. The outfit isn't super bad, but I struggle to praise it, so I think it belongs in C tier. Second up is Agnes. This design is much simpler than Tiz's outfit, already being a major improvement. The solid color on the attire and the scaled gauntlets really appeal to me. Although, I can't get over the little shoes she has. That's quite the fashion choice. Strong B tier. Next up is Ring-a-Bell. Now, before I go over his Monk design, let's take a look back at his Freelancer attire real quick. The sky blue coat with the fur around the neck is a really smooth design, and I dig it a lot. The deep black gloves, pants, and boots really pop. This outfit is super clean, landing Ring-a-Bell his first A tier placement. Now, let's see if his Monk attire lives up to that hype. So, for every job except Freelancer, the male job designs are very similar between Tiz and Ring-a-Bell, and the same thing rings true with Agnes and Adia, so a lot of my sentiments on one will most likely carry over to the other. I do believe Ring-a-Bell wears the Monk outfit a bit better than Tiz, but overall, I think Ring-a-Bell will join him in C tier. Last but not least, we have Adia. Looking at her Freelancer attire, it resembles the standard Sky Knight outfit, which is pretty cool. I like Idia's little bow on her head. Similar to Tiz's Freelancer attire, I don't feel too strongly about Idia's outfit one way or the other. One question I have though is, does anyone else see a pig face on the back end of her skirt? Or is that just me? Either way, this outfit is a B for me. Moving on to her Monk design, I'm not as big of a fan of this one as I was Agnes's. The garb's main tan color scheme doesn't really stand out to me too much. But I will say, however, that the rings on her arms are really cool and always remind me of the film Kung Fu Hustle. So just for that, it lands itself in B tier.